they are ever seeking a place of rest, and never finding it, so long as they are burdened with the form of concept. Rest from ceaseless motion can only come to them in inertia, by total redistribution of their accumulated mass. Diffusion and disappearance in inertia is the lot of planets as it is of men, and of every evolving thing. Slowly changing their dimensions, they are all completing their centrifugal journeys south by way of west to their havens of rest, where they await their regeneration. Slowly expanding, they are drawing away from the sun, assisted by the sun in their recession. The sun of the system is pushing them all slowly away to cool, and drawing unto itself new light units for its regeneration, which will enable it to replace the ejected planets and to continue its own potency. The planets are the finished product of the sun's fashioning, and the regenerative light units are the raw product from which the planets are fashioned. As the sun is preponderantly pushing the planets, so are the planets doing likewise with their satellites, the grandchildren of the sun. When the planets left the equatorial plane of the sun, they were even then preponderantly radiative masses of such dimensions that their expulsion was imperative. As the sun's desire to push them further and further away exceeds its desire to attract them, their dimensions gradually adjust themselves to this desire. The nearer a mass is to its sun, the denser the mass, the higher its freezing point, the higher its equilibrium pressure wall, the smaller its volume, the faster its revolution, the slower its rotation, the more nearly parallel its plane of revolution to the solar ecliptic, the greater the positive charge, the greater the eccentricity, and the higher the potential, the greater is the ability of mass to attract the positive charge of other mass and to expel its negative discharge. The further a mass is from its sun, the more tenuous the mass, the lower its freezing point, the lower its equilibrium pressure wall, the larger its volume, the slower its revolution, the faster its rotation, the greater the angle of its plane of revolution to the solar ecliptic, the less its eccentricity, the weaker the negative discharge, and the lower the potential, the less the ability to attract other mass and to assist its own expulsion from other mass of higher potential. To expect this planet to fall to the sun if its motion were checked is equivalent to expecting an inflated balloon to drop to earth. If these statements are demonstrable, then the Newtonian law cannot be true, for every change of dimension whatsoever in any mass alters the ability of that mass to conform to the requirements of that law, either by exceeding those requirements or by falling short of them. Every change of dimension in a mass changes all the dimensions in the mass. This universe of dimension is divided into pressure compartments or states of motion which vary in orderly ratios. Between the compartments are inertial walls which readjust their positions with ever-changing dimension of motion in the universe. A ball falling to the ground simultaneously displaces every atom in the universe and changes its dimensions. Something must simultaneously rise from this planet toward inertia to replace the falling ball. Mass expanded to greater volume must rise to the proper pressure zone for that increased volume. Low potential must rise to replace high potential which has fallen. The furthermost star must contract or expand to adjust its density to the changed potential thus caused. All of the planets and satellites of any system owe their positions of the moment to their dimensions and respective relations of the moment. They are all constantly falling toward the violet of disappearance in positions appropriate to their expanding dimensions of decreasing potentials. In the same way, all of the generative light units which are regenerating any system are constantly falling toward the yellow of maximum incandescence appearance, in positions appropriate to their contracting dimensions of increasing potentials. Dimensions are as relative as the state of motion which they measure. All dimensions of mass simultaneously contract and expand with its changing potentials. The inertial planes which lie between any two masses or systems are relatively closer together in dense compact systems than in expanded systems of more widely separated parts. If opposing dense masses are forced into closer proximity, the four pressure zones which lie between the gravitational centers of the masses and their inertial planes are more restricted. The more restricted the pressure zones of a system, the more restricted the orbits of all planets and satellites within the four pressure zones of that system. Restricted orbits demand an orderly acceleration of all masses revolving within them. Accelerated mass revolving around the nucleus of a system increases the generative power of the vortex of that system, its maximum increase being at the perihelions of the planes of revolution of all the masses of the system. Accelerated revolution charging bodies attract. Accelerated rotation discharging bodies repel. The ability of a mass to attract increases as the speed of revolution increases. The ability of a mass to repel increases as the speed of rotation decreases. Increase of generative power of a system means increase of the centripetal force of the system. Increase of the centripetal force of a system means increase of the potential of a system. Increase of potential means increase of positive charge. Increase of positive charge means increase of power to attract. The ability of one mass to attract another depends upon the relative positive charge of each and its relative position in respect to other masses. Increase of speed of revolution of the planets of a system means deceleration of rotation of the planets of that system. Deceleration of rotation of the planets of a system means decrease of the centrifugal force and consequent increase of the centripetal force of that system. The ability of one mass to repel another depends upon the relative negative discharge of each and its relative position in respect to other masses. Let us repeat the first law of gravitation. Every mass has the relative apparent ability to attract and to repel every other mass, its relative ability depending upon its relative potential. Increased centripetal force due to increased speed of revolution of masses revolving in restricted vortices, together with the lessened centrifugal force caused by retarding the rotation of the masses revolving in such vortices, necessarily raises the potential of a system. All dimensions of such systems change with the increased ability of the system to generate. Volume decreases, orbital areas decrease. Decrease of volume is exactly balanced by acceleration of revolution. Equal areas must be covered in contracting orbits as in expanding orbits of equal mass. In a contracted orbit, 30 trillion revolutions per second may be necessary to balance the area covered by an expanded orbit making one revolution in 10 years. But an equilibrium of the universal constant must be maintained. Melting points are higher in contracted orbits. All standard units simultaneously change, just so with all other dimensions. Their change would be purely relative and always in balance.